what are nucleic acids? Nucleic acids are the polynucleotides, or you can say that they are the polymer of nucleotide. That is why the doctors will suggest to take the iodine salt to maintain the normal production of thyroxine from the thyroid gland. Vitamin D, which is obtained from the fish, egg, yolk and exposures to sunlight. The example is rickets. Hello my dear students, a warm welcome you all. Myself is Purnima, lecturer in Department of Chemistry at Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. My dear students, in our last discussion, we were dealing with the unit called Biomolecules. Under that, we have discussed about the proteins and we have discussed about the types of protein, and also we have learnt about the structure of proteins. In that, we have learnt about the primary structure, secondary structure and tertiary structure. And also, we have learned that how the protein structure will get changed due to the denaturation of protein. At the last, we also discussed about the enzymes. Is it right? Yes. Today, we'll move on to the next topic of this unit about the hormones and vitamins and about the nucleic acid. Let's see what are hormones first. Already we have learned that hormones are nothing but a chemical substances which are secreted in ductless gland. The example for the ductless glands are endocrine glands. We know that these endocrine glands which secrete their hormone directly to the blood. So once these hormones are directly reaches to the blood, from the blood it will reaches to the targeted site and it will perform its physiological activity. That is why the hormones are also known as chemical messengers. Understood? So what are hormones? Hormones are the chemical substances which are produced from the ductless gland. Here I have shown you the picture of ductless gland which is there in the human body. So the best example is pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, adrenal gland, testes, ovaries, pancreas and the thymus. All these glands are also known as endocrine glands. These endocrine glands are also known as ductless gland because it will secrete their hormone directly to the blood. That is why these hormones will be reaches to the targeted site and produces its psychological effect. Now let us see what are the types will be there in the hormone. First I will go for the classifications of the steroids, okay, which comes under the hormone. Remember, the steroids are a group of chemical compounds which are further classified into two types. They are adrenal cortical and a sex hormone. So this adrenal cortical, which is nothing but a adrenal glands which produces a adrenaline hormone. Okay, this adrenal gland which produces a adrenal hormone which will be mainly helps to maintain the stress in the human body. Hence that hormone which is also known as stress hormone. Okay. Next comes to the sex hormone. In that there are two types of the sex hormones will be there. The first one is male sex hormones and female hormones. What is that male hormones? Male hormones are also of two types, that is androgen and testosterone. Androgen and testosterone are the two different types of the hormone which is present in the male sex organs, and it will responsible for the development of the secondary sexual characteristics as well as it will be responsible for the preparations of the sperm for the fertilization of the egg. When it comes to the female sex hormones, in that there are two types will be there, that is estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen and progesterone. These two hormones, especially estrogen, will prepare the secondary sexual characteristics in the female, whereas the progesterone will prepare the ovary for the fertilization with the sperm. This is how we can classify the hormones into the steroid category. I'll recall it once again. When I say it is a hormone, we have understood that these are the chemical substances which is produced from the ductless gland and directly reaches to the blood. Once it reaches to the blood, it will go to the targeted site and produces its activity. Is it right? So this hormones will becomes under the steroids. There are of two types of steroids will be there. The first one is adrenal cortex as well as sex hormone. When I say it is a adrenal cortex which comes under the adrenal gland which produces a adrenaline hormone. Which produces what? Adrenaline hormone. This adrenaline hormone will be mainly responsible for the maintenance of the stress in the human body. Hence this hormone which is also known as stress hormone. When I come to the sex hormones, these hormones are of two types, that is male sex hormones and female sex hormone. Again, in the male sex organs are of two types, that is androgen as well as testosterone. This androgen which develops a secondary sexual characteristics in the male, whereas the testosterone which it may choose the sperm with the fertilization with the egg. When it comes to the female sex hormones, there are of two types, that is estrogen as well as with the progesterone, or we can say it is estrone also. This estrogen which develops a secondary sexual characteristics in the female, whereas progesterone which prepare the ovary for the fertilization with the male sperm. And there are other class of hormones which is also there. They are peptide hormone, amino acid derivatives hormone and miscellaneous hormone. First I'll go for the peptide hormones. Okay. When I talk about the peptide hormone, there are of two types. That is insulin as well as with the glycogen. We all know that this insulin is produced from the pancreas. Is it right? Yes. This is a pancreas which is present in the human body which secretes what? Insulin. Which secretes the insulin. This insulin which maintains the normal blood sugar level in the human body. Whereas glycogen which is also produced in the pancreas, and remember it will maintain the normal glucose level in the human body. When it comes to the amino acid derivatives, here the best example is thyroidal hormones. We know that these thyroidal hormones are produced from the thyroid glands. Is it right? It produces what? Thyroxine. It produces what? Thyroxine. So, this thyroid glands which produces a thyroxine hormone that will maintain the normal growth, or we can say that this hormone will be mainly helpful for the growth and development in the human body. That is why these hormones are produced from the thyroid gland. We know that there are of two types of the thyroxine hormones which is produced. If it is produced in the low quantity, then we say it is hypothyroxine production. If it is in excess, we say it is hyperthyroxine. From this we can say that the person which is having the excess of excretion of thyroxine hormone, the person will suffer with a hyperthyroxine. If the person whose thyroid gland produces a very less quantities of thyroxine hormone, they are suffered with a hypothyroxine. That is why the doctors, they'll suggest to take the iodine salt to maintain the normal production of thyroxine from the thyroid gland. Remember, which is the amino acid derivatives. When it comes to the last one, that is a miscellaneous one. In this, you can see that this miscellaneous means these are the group of hormone which does not belong to this group as we have discussed now, which is the other different kinds of the hormone which is found in the plants, especially the cytokinases. Cytokinin which is produced in the plant cell and enhances the cell division. Enhances what? Cell division. This is how we can broadly classify the hormones into following type. So, other classes are of 3 types. Remember, the peptide hormone, amino acid derivatives hormone and miscellaneous hormone. In the peptide hormones are of 2 types, insulin and a glucagon. This insulin which maintains a normal blood sugar level, whereas the glucagon, which produces a glucose to maintain the blood sugar level. And it comes to the amino acid derivatives, that is thyroid gland will be there. In that, thyroxine hormones will be produced, and there are 2 types, that is hyperthyroxine and hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism you can say. And last one is miscellaneous hormone. In this hormones, which does not belong to this class of hormone, but instead it is also present in the plant cell, especially it promotes to the cell division. The best example is cytokine. Next, we'll see with us some of the important hormones which comes under your syllabus. That is polypeptide, that is a peptide bonded hormones. The best example is insulin and a glucagon, as I have explained. It maintains the blood sugar level. And it comes to the amino acid derivatives. The best example for this is epinephrine, and it brings about the response to the stimuli. When it comes to the steroid, we know that there are 2 types of the male and female sex organs will be there, that is estrogen and androgen, which develops a secondary sexual characteristics in the male as well as in the female. Okay. Next, we'll move on to the next topic, that is vitamins. When I say about vitamins, we all know that vitamins are very important for the human body because these are the organic compound which is required in very small quantity. That is why we always used to take through the diet. Is it right? Yes. The example is vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin K are the best example where we used to take these vitamins through our food. Is it right? Yes. And these vitamins are of 2 types. One is fat-soluble vitamins, another one is water-soluble vitamin. If I say it is fat-soluble vitamin, these are the vitamin which is soluble in fat as well as in the oil. And this kind of vitamins, it will be stored in adipose tissue or in the liver. Adipose tissue or in the liver. Example is vitamin A, vitamin K and vitamin D are the best example for this. When it comes to the water-soluble vitamins, these are the vitamins, they are water-soluble, and remember this kind of vitamins, if you take continuously, it will be excreted through the body in the form of urine. That is why this kind of vitamins should be taken continuously through the diet so that it will not store in our body. Why it is not stored in our body? Because it will be excreted in the form of urine. That is why we must take this vitamins continuously through the diet. Example is vitamin C and vitamin B are the best example for this. So, hope you understood that what are vitamins and what are the types of vitamin. That is water soluble as well as with the fat soluble vitamin. Next is vitamins and their sources and their deficiency diseases. We know that vitamin C is obtained from fish liver oil and carrot, butter and milk. The deficiency of the vitamin A which causes the night blindness, which is also known as xerophthalmia. Next is vitamin C, which is obtained from the citrus fruits, amla and green leaf vegetables, and it causes a scurvy. That is nothing but a bleeding gums. Next is vitamin D, which is obtained from the fish, egg, yolk and exposures to sunlight. The example is rickets. And comes to the vitamin E, which is obtained from the sunflower oil, wheat gram oil, etc. and which causes a deficiency diseases are muscular weakness and increased in the fragility of RBC. Vitamin K is mainly obtained from the green leaf vegetables, which increases the blood clotting time. Vitamin B1, which is mainly obtained from yeast, milk, cereals, green vegetables, etc. and this deficiency which causes the beriberi. Next is vitamin B2, which is obtained from the milk, egg white and the liver, kidney, etc. Which deficiency diseases are causes the digestive disorders and burning sensation of skin. Or you can say this, it is a chiliosis. Vitamin B6, it is obtained from yeast, milk, yogurt and the cereals and grains. And the deficiency diseases are causes the convolutions. Vitamin B12, which is obtained from fish, meat, egg and curd, and it causes a anemia. Deficiency diseases which causes a anemia. These are some of the important vitamins, the sources and the deficiency diseases. Next is the last topic of this unit is nucleic acid. We all know that we looks very similar to the ancestors. Is it right? Why is it so? That is mainly because from one generation to another generation, we carry the certain characteristics. That is mainly because of the gene. And we all know that the genes will carry the chromosomes, and chromosomes are mainly responsible for carrying the certain characteristics from one generation to the next generation. When these are carrying, these chromosomes are made up of organic molecules as well as with a protein. These organic molecules are nothing but a nucleic acid. Then what are nucleic acids? Nucleic acids are the polynucleotides, or you can say that they are the polymer of nucleotide. And these nucleic acids are of two types. They are known as RNA and DNA. RNA and DNA. Remember, the DNA stands for deoxyribosugar, whereas the RNA stands for ribosugar. This RNA which always responsible for protein synthesis, whereas DNA is always responsible for transferring the genetic characteristics from one generation to the next generation. And when we looking into the nucleic acid, we must know their chemical composition. The general chemical composition of all nucleic acids are nitrogen base, pentose sugar and phosphate group. But it will be different for DNA as well as for the RNA. Let's see the combinations or the sequence of the sequence which is present in the DNA as well as in the RNA. First, I'll go for the DNA. In DNA, there are 4 bases will be there. They are adenine and thymine, guanine and cytosine. This adenine will be bonds with thymine by 2 hydrogen bond, whereas guanine which forms a bonding with the cytosine by 3 hydrogen bond. So this is a sequence which is found in DNA. Similarly, when it is looks for RNA which consists of adenine which is forming a double bond with the thymine, whereas guanine which forms a 3 hydrogen bond with uracil. U stand for uracil, and this is a RNA sequence. This is a RNA sequence. So remember, what is the basic composition of nucleic acid? It always consists of what? Nitrogen base plus pentose sugar plus phosphate group. Plus phosphate group. And each DNA which consists of 4 sequences, that is A, T, G, C. Whereas in the RNA, the sequence will be goes like this: A, T and G, U. When it comes to the Harvard structure of this DNA and RNA, especially for the DNA, it is known as beta D 2-deoxyribosugar. You can see that this is the first carbon atom, this is the second carbon atom, this is the third, fourth and fifth. Okay. So in this carbon atom, you can see that all this carbon atom will be bonded with the 5 carbon chain, and hence it is also known as furon. It is known as furon, and there is a one OH will be there, up, down and down. Is it right? And you can see that this carbon atom which is having CH2OS and this structure which is for DNA. This is for DNA. When it comes to the RNA, which is known as beta D ribosis, okay, and the structure will be goes like this: OH, H, H, OH, H and OH, and CH2OH. Again, this is a 5-membered ring and it is similar to the furan. That is why we have substituted that values, or you can say that we have substituted the OH and H to this furan. Okay, and this is for RNA. This is how we can easily represent a nucleotide structure by writing the Hava structure of the DNA and Hava structure of the RNA. Remember, for the DNA it is known as beta D 2-deoxyribose sugar, whereas for the RNA it is known as beta D ribosis. Okay. Next is nucleotide and nucleoside. When I say it is nucleoside, remember, which is made up of always nitrogen base and pentose sugar. Nitrogen base plus pentose sugar are known as nucleoside. Whereas in case of nucleotide, this is a nucleotide. This can be obtained by nitrogen base, pentose sugar and phosphate group. So what are the three different things here? So nitrogen base, pentose sugar and phosphate group, all three together is known as nucleotide. Whereas in the nucleoside, we say nitrogen base with the pentose sugar as a nucleoside. So these are the main differences between nucleotide and nucleoside. Next is here I have shown you how the nucleic acids will be formed by the combinations of nitrogen base, pentose sugar along with the phosphate group. So here you can see that this is my phosphate group. Phosphate group. And this is a pentose sugar and this is a nitrogen base. Nitrogen base. When the nucleotide and nucleotide which is added, you know what will form? It will form a phosphodiester linkage. Which forms what? Phosphodiester linkage and leads to the formation of double strands of the DNA. That is, this is a phosphate group and this is my sugar group and this is my nitrogen base and this is another nitrogen base and this is a pentose sugar and this is a phosphate group which are linked at 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Is it right? To the third to the fifth carbon atom, you can see that the phosphate group will be goes and attach and results in a formation of phosphodiester linkage. So hope you all understood with this structure. Next we'll move on to the double helical structure of DNA. When we talk about the DNA, we must also understand the structure of DNA, that is also known as double helix. Okay. So you can see here, this is my structure of DNA. You can see that each strand will be different. That will be ends with 3 and this will be end with 5. Let's see the structure now. It is composed of 2 right-handed helical strands. These are the 2 right-handed helical strands. They called themselves to form this double helix. So these are the one helical form and this is another helical form. They called it themselves to form a double helical structure. And you can see that this double helical model of DNA which is having hydrogen bond in between them and these 2 strands are also complementary to each other. What does it mean? You can see that I have written the sum of the combinations which is present in the DNA, that is A will form a double hydrogen bond with the T and G will form a triple bond with the C. A stands for adenine, T for thymine and G for guanine and C for cytosine. Is it right? Adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine. You can see that how they have formed a bond with this sequences. Okay, they are complementary to each other and they are held together by a hydrogen bond, and these two strands are anti-parallel in nature. They are anti-parallel in nature. They are complementary to each other because the strands will be consist of 4 sequences. Next is the secondary structure of RNA helix are present only in the single strand. Sometimes they fold it back themselves to form a double helix. Always remember the DNA will exit in double strand, whereas RNA will be exits in single strand. It may be like this also. Okay, it may be like this. So the RNA molecules are of 3 types and they perform a different function also. That is messenger RNA, ribosomal RNA and transfer RNA. These are the 3 types of RNA which is found in nucleic acid, and each different RNA will perform each different function. Now let us see the differences between RNA and DNA so that you will understand that how do we classify this differences between DNA and RNA. When I talk about the DNA, just now we have understood that the sugar moiety is referred as beta-D deoxyribo sugar for the RNA which is known as deoxyribo sugar. And it consists of thymine, cytosine and a pyridine bases and guanine and adenine as the purine bases, and here it consists of what? Cytosine and uracil. That is why in case of RNA, what is the combination? Adenine, thymine and guanine and uracil in case of RNA. Whereas in DNA, that is adenine and thymine, guanine and cytosine. This is a combination. And remember the DNA which is exhibits in a double strand, whereas the RNA will be exhibits in a single strand. And chiefly it occurs in the nucleus of the cell which is present in the cytoplasm of the cell, and it has a unique property of replication and do not undergo any replication. And it controls the transmission of hereditary characters, whereas our RNA which is involved in protein synthesis. You can see that this is a single strands of the RNA which consists of adenine, uracil, guanine and cytosine. Sometimes the cytosine which also present. Next is in case of DNA, you can see that this is a sugar phosphate backbone and these are the base pairs, that is adenine with the thymine, guanine with the cytosine. This is how the DNA they collided themselves or they folded themselves to form a double strand, whereas our RNA which forms a single strand. Next is the biological functions of the nucleic acid. What is the main function of nucleic acid? Just now we have understood that DNA will be helpful for transferring of genetic characters from one generation to next generation, whereas the RNA will be mainly responsible for protein synthesis. DNA is a chemical basis of hereditary and may be regarded as reverse of genetic information. A DNA molecule is capable of self-duplication during the cell division, and identical DNA strands are also transferred to the daughter cell. That is why we look so similar to our parents or to the ancestors because of the DNA replication. During the replications, which will also transfer to some of the characteristics from one generation to another generation, that is why we look almost similar. And they synthesize a protein in the cell. Actually, the protein is synthesized by various RNA molecules in the cell, but the message of the synthesis to the particular protein will be present in the DNA. So, this is all about the nucleic acid, vitamins and hormone. Again, what all the things which I have covered in this session, which is very important for the examination point of view, have a look on it and try to work out with the differences, because from this chapter we can expect 6 marks. Whenever they will ask you to write the differences, we don't know. So please have a look on it and try to work out, and we'll meet you with the next unit. Till that, take care, be safe. Thank you.